party to the extraordinary euphoria and excitement of the SDP was dark from light. I mean, it was just a total contrast. And in those first few months, everywhere we went, I mean, thousands of people came to meetings. It was almost impossible to find anybody who wasn't going to vote for the SDP and later for the Alliance. And of course, the by-election results were all phenomenal, one after the other.
The success of the Social Democrats and Labour's internal divisions focused attention on the leadership of Michael Foot. At the cenotaph that year, he seemed distracted and unsuitably dressed. To some, his manner and appearance at the ceremony came to symbolise his unfitness to be party leader, let alone Prime Minister. For the first time, he was openly criticised by members of his own party.
He turned up in a donkey jacket. It was like a reefer coat, which was marvellous for a parade of miners or a demo with a cap on. But it wasn't the sort of thing that a Labour leader should wear at a cenotaph on Armistice Day. And there were things like that which did us a lot of damage.
But Michael Foot seemed unaware of the impression he was creating.
After it was over, I went back to the Foreign Office where they have drinks. There was the Queen Mother, and she said to me, "That's a lovely warm coat you've got on." I said, "Yes, you need a coat like that on a day like this." So that was, I had never dreamt that this was going to cause such trouble.
Michael Foot became the object of derision and cruel caricature in the press. The suffering inflicted on a gentle and unworldly man was deeply distressing to his friends.
It would have been better for Michael Foot if Denis Healey had become leader of the party. I mean in personal terms, in terms of the pressures upon Michael and the wretched treatment that he got from most quarters.
I was caricatured, and of course caricatures can be extremely wounding. But there have been quite a lot of people in our politics before me, and much more eminent than myself, who've been caricatured. Sometimes the caricatures are so fierce that it can destroy them, but sometimes they surmount the caricatures.
The contrast of Foot with the Conservative leader Margaret Thatcher became more marked as time passed. In 1982, Argentina's invasion of the Falklands and their recapture transformed her standing in the polls.
She was able, after 3 very unpopular years when her popularity and her party's popularity fell to a quarter of the electorate, she was able, following the Falklands Philip, to build Thatcherism into a political approach which was appealing to many people for a time, and we, instead of challenging her, were fighting one another on abstract theoretical questions totally irrelevant to the needs of ordinary people.
Michael Foot's problems would not go away. Early in 1983, Peter Tatchell stood for Labour in the Bermondsey by-election.
Can we rely on your support for Labour in the election on the 24th?
You may do.
Michael Foot had condemned Tatchell in the House of Commons after the left-wing activist called for extra-parliamentary action against the Tories. Foot had declared he would never endorse Tatchell as a candidate, but then backed down and allowed him to stand.
It was an absolute own goal and self-inflicted wound. Whatever you think of Peter Tatchell, he's a principled man, associated now a lot with gay rights, but at the time trying to bring the Bermondsey Labour Party into line with the thinking and needs of the people in the locality. A terrible thing to do.
I'm Peter Tatchell, the Labour candidate. I live over on the Rockingham estate, and that's why I'm a bit of a rebel. If you live around here and you're working class, you've got to be, don't you?
Well, I don't think I never said that he would never be a candidate. You know, I think I dealt with it fairly well. I'm sorry that Peter Tatchell was injured by what was said originally, because especially he behaved very well about it.
In many ways, Michael Foot, by denouncing me as a candidate, gave a green light both to the right-wing press and to Labour's political opponents. What he was effectively saying was that I was unfit to be a candidate, and that effectively declared open season on me. all the protection or whatever the Labour leadership might have given me was removed, and I became fair game for virtually everybody under the sun to have a go.
Tatchell's public association with gay rights was a gift to some of his opponents.
Peter Tatchell.
Yeah, I know.
Pleased to meet you.
Posters were displayed in the Bermondsey constituency saying, which Queen would you support? And a photograph of the Queen of England and a photograph of Peter Tatchell, designed to really appeal and to incite the worst kind of prejudices.
The old guard of the Labour Party in Bermondsey put up a rival candidate, John O'Grady, a local councillor, whose campaign plumbed the depths.
I'll give you a song about Tatchell. Tatchell is a puppet as pretty as can be. But he must be slow if he don't know he can't be our MP. Hooray! Both real.
It seemed that some senior members of the party actually wished for a Tatchell defeat.
I can remember morning press conferences where I was surrounded by Labour frontbench spokespersons, and I was suffering an incredible grilling over issues like my support for the withdrawal of troops from Ireland or for lesbian and gay equality.
And is there need for money to be given to the troops out movement?
Well, it's a hypothetical
No, it's not a hypothetical question. It's a question before this committee debate in the council. Do you believe yourself that there is a need for money to be given to the troops out movement? Yes or no? Will you please answer the question?
I will discuss it tomorrow morning when a decision has been made.
The point is, Mr. Thatcher, you can't give a straight and frank answer to a question, can you? You sidestep every question because you can't give a straight answer, can you?
While the right-wing press was absolutely ferociously grilling me, the front-bench spokesperson just sat there and did nothing. They didn't come to my aid. They didn't offer any intervention to try and help me at all. I was just left to be grilled non-stop by these right-wing hyenas.
The result, when it came, was even worse than expected.
Peter Tatchell, 7,698. And I therefore declare that Simon Henry Ward Hughes has been duly elected to serve as Member of Parliament for the Southwark Bermondsey constituency.
And there is tonight's sensational result at Bermondsey. Simon Hughes, Liberal SDP, 17,017.
Defeat at Bermondsey raised questions about Michael Foot's leadership once more.
The Bermondsey by-election was a walking nightmare from beginning to end, and anybody who worked in that by-election, I think, came to the view that the most we could hope for in the general election, which was on the cards 2 or 3 months away after that, was Labour's survival as a second party, and that we had literally no hope of getting into government.
And where, as an opposition party, ever lost a seat with 20-odd thousand majority at a time when unemployment's going through the roof, and at a time, you know, when Mrs. Thatcher was screwing the country, and here we are in Bermondsey, of all places, losing seats. I mean, that really was the pits. And, you know, I think that's when people thought, Michael, he's no leader.
But as Labour politicians have so often lamented, the party lacks the ruthlessness of the Conservatives in replacing its leaders. Although many felt that Michael Foot should be toppled in favour of Dennis Healey, few were willing to wield the knife.
I didn't want to suggest it. My job was, as deputy leader, to be loyal to him. The only chap who suggested it was Gerald Kaufman, and he put it to Michael, and Michael refused.
I said to him, Michael, I think you ought to resign as leader of the Labour Party. I think that there are people going away to fight the general election who will not come back if you lead the Labour Party in this general election. And he listened with the courtesy that you would expect from Michael Foot, and he said, I don't think I can do that.
I thought it would be a quite unwise step to take, and I still think I was right, although I could well understand that people said, oh, you know, Dennis Healey would have made a better leader of the party in those circumstances than you would, although actually what we did was to cooperate as well we could to try and deal with a desperately difficult situation.
On the 9th of May 1983, Margaret Thatcher surprised the country by calling a general election.
We're on the way to victory. You going to have any problems with the manifesto today? No, not at all.
Michael Foot was ill-prepared for the campaign without his own manifesto.
Right, here we are. Now, where's the driver?
sir. Get in.
He and Dennis Healey hastily